None of the courses really taught me how to go about raising funds for startup. Realize that all careers these days have a half-life of 5 years.
In the real world, there are no chapters कि chapter 1 से chapter 10 कर लोगे तो 2 लाख रुपए आ जाएंगे आपके पास, right?
Life is going to be a balance of three things. It's like a Venn diagram. I think it'll be very difficult for you to make money. You will have to send at least 100 emails, out of which like get to at least 20 phone calls, and maybe out of those 20, 4 will say yes, we're interested. So I say that if you're looking at your numbers after 30 days, my friend, the ship is already sailed.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Front Seat Show. Today we have Sarthak with us. Sarthak is an incredible human being, very, very intelligent. And today in this episode, we broke down what happens when a startup receives millions and millions of dollars of funding. What should a founder look at when they are signing those papers? What are the things that you need to keep in mind? What is the process like? He's just released a book on startup funding and a lot more. So this episode was really insightful for me as well. A very, very exciting discussion around accounting, startups, funding, and a lot more. Do look out for this one.
Hello, Sarthak.
Hello.
Welcome to Front Seat with Ayush. We're just talking about a lot of fun things, but I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I mean, we did this in the past. Sadly, Zoom crashed. Now I'm so happy that didn't happen because now we are doing it offline, which is
Absolutely
like so much more better than doing it online. But I'm so excited to have you. I've learned a lot from you. You're just talking business. You've helped me understand so many things that I'm terrible at, and I think hopefully we can impart some knowledge to the viewers as well. The audience is very, very young, very, very excited to hear stories from you. Usually we have people that you help out a lot with, right? Usually we have these startup founders who have raised like massive capital, and you are, or rather your firm is the one who's helping them make right decisions in that hemisphere. So I have a lot of questions about the startup ecosystem. How did you get into the startup ecosystem and your thoughts on it? But yes, welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I think sitting with such a great personality. So your aura is definitely rubbing off on me, and I'm very happy to be here.
You know how to, you're just discussing that Sarthak knows how to do the drama. So now he knows how to flatter also. But one thing that when I was looking at your portfolio, you are the poster child of every Indian household. You've done like everything that a parent wants their kid to do. आपने ऐसे youngest वाले 23 में CA भी हो गया, CMS, CS. I may be like naming all the wrong things by the way here because I don't know any of that. But you are that poster child, a child that every, especially the 90s वाले जो parents होते हैं उनको यही बच्चा चाहिए था कि yes, this is the kid that we want so that we can flaunt, see Sarthak has done so well. But what that makes me question is, now that you've done all of those things and now you are so closely working with so many founders, do you still recommend the same things to, let's say, would you still recommend the same thing to your kid? Would you still recommend the same thing to people who are watching this podcast, that if you want to, let's say, start up, would you still recommend the traditional educational route?
So I think it'll be really unfair for me to say that doesn't help, because one thing it definitely helps with is credibility.
Yeah.
And if you think about why do people go to B schools, it's not primarily for what they will be taught in classrooms. There are two things that B schools solve for globally. One is the brand or the badge of honor that they give you, which opens up doors for you much more quickly. The second is the network, which has a lot of value, which can help you create money later. Indian B schools, of course, sell a different USP for them. It's placements and the ROI on how much have you invested in this education and what can you get later. Right. So those work slightly differently, but still it's the branding and the network that people do that for. I think the problem is where someone demarcates it as, okay, my education is getting over with this formal degree. Because I remember doing all these courses, the last exam, some of my friends would just tear up their books and be like, now I'm never going to study this and never going to do this. And I understand where that comes from because it takes effort to pass a few of these exams. But knowing that what has probably helped me, none of the courses really taught me how to go about raising funds for startup. I have never worked at an investment banking firm which gave me that experience on a platter. Is just building a system of learning on an everyday basis that helps you go ahead in life, and be it building your personal brand, be it building a business, anything at all. And realize that all careers these days have a half-life of 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you're not upgrading as you go with the times, you will be absolutely irrelevant in 5 years. So education is an ongoing process. If you don't have that formal education, you probably have to put in so much more effort in upskilling yourself in other areas, and not just upskilling, but also marketing it, so that despite not having the degree, people see that yes, you have the capability. The degree just helps you get a little bit of a
Head start.
knowing that you may probably not have to put in as much money in marketing yourself.
This is a very interesting framework that, in fact, Yash Raj and I were discussing that framework, that how schools teach you is that they give you the solution first. So they will introduce the concept of addition. They will tell you that this is the solution. Then they will throw a problem at you, which is, hey, now solve 5 plus 4. Then they will probably gauge you on that problem by giving you exams, and you're done. You now know addition. In real life, however, it's the opposite. You get the problem first. Ki boss, paisa kamana hai. Then you find a solution, like a potential solution to that problem, ki paisa kaise kamana hai. Which is the exact opposite of what we have been taught, and because of which a lot of us struggle in the real world. We know we have a very different way of learning. And then we come to the real world. You said that the learning never stops. But how we learn in the real world is very, very different, right? In the real world, there are no chapters ki chapter 1 se chapter 10 kar loge to 2 lakh rupees aa jayenge aapke paas, right? You have to figure out the problem, then you have to figure out potential solutions. So now my question is, ki if the education system is teaching us how to learn the wrong way, which I feel is the wrong way, should I not spend those 5 years practicing the craft, maybe learning the right way, looking at it from like a very practical point of view, ki how can I make money, how can I learn more, instead of first learn the wrong way, then dive into the real world and now figure out how to learn the right way?
Great question. And I think that is simplifying it to the extent that saying a student only has to study the coursework. You know, it's similar to saying that a CEO will only have to manage the team. A CEO may have to do sales, will have to hire people, fire people. They will have to be part of new product development and everything.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to, I think, every other part of life. So even as a student, and I think a great deal of that goes to, the credit goes to our parents also, you know, who've been like, okay, I want this guy to also try out cricket and football and table tennis and, you know, swimming and all of that. And I think, think about it, you know, your McKinsey's, your top B schools, your MBB top consulting firms will take the 4.0 CGPA guys, the top tier. Why?
Top guys, yeah.
It's not because they know that these people have passed this exam and which is why they will be able to do consulting well. It's because they know they can put in the hours to achieve an outcome and figure out a way that how is it that in the least possible time and effort can I become the topper and optimize for it.
Correct.
So I think that's the skill. So if you look at it from that point of view, that's the skill you're really learning in formal education. But that should not be all. There have to be so many other aspects too.
So essentially the summary is, if you're looking at formal education as a means to an end, ki boss ye kara aur uske baad mein life sort hai, that is not the case. It gives you a lot of advantages, as you said, a lot of head start in terms of network and the ability for people to... there's this one really interesting thing that people told me when I was studying for IIT, is that the best thing that IIT teaches you or tells about you is not the fact that you got into IIT, but the fact that you did something that you did not like for 3 years and aced at it.
Absolutely.
That says a lot about you as a person. Ki if I throw a problem at you, which you may or may not like, or you may or may not be motivated to do it, you have the discipline to still solve.
Absolutely. So it teaches you discipline and grit.
Yeah. Grit is the word. Damn interesting. How has life been like for you? I mean, you do have like tons of awards, and then, you know, you got into starting, like you continued your father's firm, if I'm not wrong, and, you know, you opened like different things. Right now you're doing a bunch of things, and probably things that I'm not even aware of. You're an author now, so congratulations.
Thank you.
On the book launch.
Thank you.
You educate, you're a teacher as well. You're now a content creator. I love watching your content, been watching it for the longest time. If you don't know, I used to like comment a lot on your
I do remember
reels.
that. Yeah. And Ayush, I think more than appreciating my content, would appreciate my my wardrobe, my dressing skills. Due credit to it should go to my wife Aditi, who's really made me a banda. I think I wasn't
I
that.
used to, it was so like, I was like, I don't want to creep this guy out, because he used to come in like formal shirts and I loved your demeanor and your aura, and like, this is how you raise capital. I'm like, wow. Like, because, creators are like very, they would do acting and they would do all kinds of stuff. And then there is Sarthak, who has the ability to retain the audience. Is not like boring, but also like dresses really sharp. And like, this is how like creators should dress up. Anyway, but like, I've been consuming your content for the longest of the times. I would love to know what's day in the life of Sarthak is like. Like, what all do you do now? How is your day structured? Is there a structure to it, and how do you do it in the first place?
Sure. So I think a lot of people, when they know me from the content, and that's when we start doing business, the first thing is, oh, you're a content creator and you're an influencer.
Yeah.
And I say that's just a very small part of
What you
what
do.
I do. So my day is such that I actually, with my wife, we have an investment banking firm. She's a marketing expert, I'm a finance expert, and I feel today marketing is a more essential part of finance than is finance itself. So we help startups raise capital. We help them with the entire deal process. We speak to investors. We do legal consulting, financial consulting. That's the main business. Content is just a marketing front to work with the best kind of people, get discovered with the best kind of brands and startups, and get to interact with them. Now, because we don't have a big production team per se, content for us is as simple as, just an iPhone, open the front camera, speak one insight which could have come out of a discussion with a client during the day. Just say it out loud into the camera, no edits, nothing, just insert captions on Instagram and post it. So the process is, it should not take more than 20 minutes of my day, because if it takes more than 20 minutes, the ROI is not as much. It's like whether you're doing SEO or you're doing performance marketing. This for us is more SEO, that we know it's a long-term play. So we have to do it as a matter of discipline, but not over 20 minutes a day. So how the day starts is 9 in the morning, I'll be at my desk. I'll quickly just put up the camera. I'll shoot something. I'll push it out. 10 o'clock formally, my work day starts. So the first half, I typically keep with, doing team meetings, just ensuring that my team is on track with all client deliverables, my own work at desk, strategizing. After that, post lunch, I keep all my meetings. I prefer to keep them all on audio only, so that I can do my walks and jogs. And at times when I'm jogging, I'm huffing and puffing, and I put it on mute and I'm listening. And whenever I have to give an insight, I'll just stop and do it. So that's a way for me to ensure that I'm doing my walk, my physical exercise, my 15,000 steps a day.
Wow.
And I'm also doing my meetings. And then after that, I think day formally gets over at about 8, 9, when I get back home. I spend time with family. I have my dinner, and after that, when watch TV, and when my wife goes off to sleep, I'll either be scrolling a bit on Instagram if I've had a very tiring day, or I'll just open up a book. And I think creating content has done this. It's brought in a system of learning that every day I have to read something new. So that I can give that insight to my audience. And so it's a great learning system.
That's really interesting. Now your clients know that you are jogging and walking while taking their calls. But it's really fascinating. And especially, I think it's a great case study for businesses, because businesses, especially in your field, I don't think a lot of them are creating content. It's only in the last 2 years that I've seen a lot of people who sell these services have created content, which is incredible. And I recommend everybody that create your personal brand, because it can help you in ways you wouldn't imagine. One of the things is, it's not just because you don't do a lot of brand deals, and a lot of people don't know that, because a lot of creators make money from brand deals. And I remember this used to be the case for me, that people used to come to me and tell me, "Ki boss, how are you making money? Tum to brand deals bhi nahi kar rahe, you are creating content. You must be spending all your time in creating content." Because they didn't know about Owl, or they didn't know about my consulting business. But the fact that my personal brand helped me get leads for a business, जहाँ पे मैं शायद potentially I can sell services at a far higher cost than money that I would ever make in probably brand deals, is the main play.
Correct.
What I would love to understand is, and this is my understanding of your business, a lot of the business, especially in our lines, are sold on the founder's credibility, which is you and probably your wife and the senior partners. How hard is it for you to delegate? And how do you delegate in the first place? Because people are trusting you with the job. कैसे delegate होता है और scale कैसे होता है business?
I don't know if I'm qualified enough to answer that because we work with teams which are not over 15, 20 people. So, I mean, for me to give someone advice who's already running a 100, 200 member team would probably not work. But I think what I also realized is, and this I read from Mr. Naval Ravikant's book where he says that, old times leverage was money and manpower, where you used other people's time and skills to make money.
Correct.
New age is tech and content. So I think we took a very conscious effort, especially in the past 2 years. So earlier we had teams of easily going up to 35, 40 people.
Interesting.
And I realized during the pandemic, because the number of people who had to go back home and were not then willing to come back. And, there was this one transition period and the world went through, say, the great resignation, and hiring has been so difficult because people have these passive sources of income, which, so then always switching and looking for the next opportunity.
Yeah.
I felt somehow it was the time to change our leverage from depending on people to do skilled jobs
Right.
to using tech and content to scale the business. So we took a very conscious decision that, okay, let's bring down the team to not over 15 people, 10 to 15 people who can handle tasks.
Interesting.
But all leverage and strategy
That's you.
stays with us. So everything which is routine, which is repetitive, we'll find one person to do it, build like a system, tell him this is how you'll write this email, this is how you'll communicate with the client, this is how you'll feed this data. All of those tasks are taken care of. So even if the person leaves tomorrow, we know that anyone else can come in, we can quickly train them in doing those tasks. But we want to create leverage using content and technology. So we're trying to do a lot of no-code tools in business, trying to see how we can reduce manpower.
That's very interesting. I have, now that we're talking about startups and manpower, I'd love to, you work very closely with a lot of founders, right? Especially early stage founders that are probably bound to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, we were just having a discussion and I mean, we can't reveal probably the discussion, but I was like, oh my God, why did I not think of this or why did I not think of that? Because there are so many permutations and combinations that a founder can think of, right? I have some very specific questions for you. Fundraising is a topic which is all over the news. Everybody is like $1 billion valuation, $100 million in, raised capital. What are some 3 pitfalls that you've seen founders should avoid or, they fall into when they raise funds?
One, I think most important is not having a parallel investor who's interested in your deal.
Okay.
If you're so desperate that you're only closing one investor, and not like you don't have a parallel offer from another, you will always get the short end of the stick because you are desperate for money. There's only one person ready to give it.
Yeah.
So you will accept whatever terms. That's one part. So you should always have a parallel offer to have a better negotiation. Second bit, I would say, is it's a numbers game. People feel that I've pitched to 10 so far. I've sent 10 emails. I haven't even gotten one interest. Oh God, what will happen? And this. And that. Sorry, it's a numbers game. Ask anyone who's been through an arranged marriage setup, or if you've watched Indian matchmaking on Netflix, you'll know it is a numbers game because for you to click, if it's that click that you're looking for in terms of, more than just an investor's money, you will have to send at least 100 emails, out of which get to at least 20 phone calls, and maybe out of those 20, 4 will say, yes, we're interested. So if you don't have a system to be reaching out to at least 100 to 100 investors, I think it'll be very difficult for you to make money. So I think that expectation and reality, there's this information gap. People just feel कि ऐसे raise होता है, ऐसे नहीं होता. So that's the second part. The third part, I think, very, very strategic again as part of the term sheet is not having a lawyer or an accountant or an expert investment banker who does this day in, day out. People just go to a lawyer friend, who could be doing family law and who could be doing some property law, whatever, saying that, will you help me with this? Which lawyer will say no? They'll say, of course, it's new business coming in, we'll help you. And they're thinking it's a friend, I'll probably save on some costs. But you need to speak and get an expert on board who's an expert at this so that they can tell you this is the market standard right now. This is how you can negotiate on these clauses.
Interesting.
And safeguard your interest, because there are founders signing terms which they don't even understand. They're lawyers also don't understand, which will come and bite you in the posterior much later. So these three things.
Interesting. You know, when you were talking about your schedule, and I've seen this, and I really admire this thing about you, is that you are very structured. If you've promised me something a certain way, I know that Sarthak is the person who will deliver, right? And that says a lot about you. And something that I try to do are two things. A, clarity of thought can help in business a lot, right? So these are some good qualities that a founder has, which is ability to structure things, ability to be very, very articulate. What are the bad qualities? Like, you must have seen that, you know, how not to be an entrepreneur. Do you have like these three things which people get wrong? Like, what are these three things that founders should not do?
Okay, three things that founders should not do. I think one, remember that life is going to be a balance of three things. It's like a Venn diagram.
Okay.
So there's time, money, and health.
Okay.
So you'd always keep trying that, I have two things and not the third. So, you might have time and money when you're retired and older, but health will not be on your side. As a younger person, you'll have health as a student, you'll have health on your side, you'll have time, you won't have money. And as an entrepreneur, most people have money, but in terms of time and health, they're really like trying to strike a balance or struggling. So I think one, ensuring that every day, at least 30 minutes as a matter of habit is dedicated to your health is like one thing I feel a lot of founders should follow. And so balancing this part. Second thing, what founders don't do, I think initially, and I've been through that period, is not knowing how to delegate and micromanaging, because you know more than your team. You want to give the best service to your client.
Yeah.
So you're just like, I'll do it. So knowing that it probably initially takes more effort to build SOPs in place and delegate it. And if they go wrong, let them go wrong, they'll learn. You have to be okay with your team messing up, because that's a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the second thing. The third thing is, most founders look at their MIS and they pride themselves in it on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
When they're sending that data to investors, or even if they bootstrap, they're like, this month we've done this much.
Yeah.
The difference it can make in your business to look at your numbers 12 times a year or 52 times a year is massive. So I say that if you're looking at your numbers after 30 days, my friend, the ship is already sailed. Like, you have to look at a weekly MIS, because if you're not looking at weekly, you won't even know what's going wrong, and you can immediately take like action to fix it.
Yeah.
So weekly MIS for sure.
I think this weekly thing is not only valid for founders, but like anybody in any kind of business, or even if they're doing jobs. There's a very silly thing that a very off-topic example is how people who are salaried, especially young, they spend their salary in a very, very wrong manner, and then after 3 weeks they realize, okay, shit, month end is there. We see so many jokes of month end, right? I think the philosophy is very relatable, which is you see most companies completing their targets in the last week, because they haven't looked at the first 3 weeks properly, and now because they were probably making a presentation in the month end, then they realize he targets to pure hue hi nahi hai, because probably they forgot to look at the targets on a weekly level, which is really, really important. I remember the first time we did the podcast, you told me you wanted to become an actor. And now I see that from, of course, you now in a completely different field.
Yeah.
Very candid question. It was the content creator. Abhi to you're justifying it as a lead gen machine, but was it part of you that you're like, I love being in front of the camera?
I think it definitely takes some amount of effort being comfortable in front of the camera. Yeah. For me, it was fairly easy. It wasn't very difficult. So that's a catalyst. It helps. But the idea of coming in front of the camera was pushed by Aditi. She was like, you have to do this. We have to make content on this to scale.
Correct.
So I think because I'm comfortable in front of the camera, it didn't take me too much convincing to start this.
Which is very fair. And I would love to understand if you had this blog as well, you told me, it's Jalebi.
Correct.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
What was that about? Like, what was the blog about?
So I'll tell you this. I used to write this blog called My Life is a Jalebi. And how it started was that back in school, I was an editor for the school magazine.
Okay,
and as editor of the magazine, the entire year, I'm trying to convince people to write articles, do all of that, editing stuff, I was all okay with. What I was really scared of was writing as a process. And I remember, and I carried this guilt inside of me for a very, very long time, which was, one of my friends used to enjoy writing. He had written a piece, and I told him, I as an editor have to give an editorial piece into the magazine.
Yeah.
I don't want to write because people will judge me that as an editor he's writing such crap. So you've written this is good. Can I submit this in my name? And he was cool with it. So that year the school's magazine had my piece, which was originally written by a friend, and I felt very bad about it. I at that time, of course, did not tell anyone about it, but I carried that guilt, and at some point I realized, okay, I have to face this fear and like overcome it. So the blog started as an exercise to overcome the fear of writing, where I made a promise to myself that, okay, I'm going to write at least publish 2 posts every single month.
Yeah.
I started doing that, and when I told my college friends about it, they were just like, oh, this is a 6-month thing which you will very easily get over with and not carry it forward.
Right.
And I kind of took it to heart that how do you challenge I'll give up on this in 6 months? So I kept doing that for years, and like I did that for 6 years, and 2015 I got the best humor blogger of India award for My Life is a Jalebi.
Wow.
I used to write, like think it was Malgudi days for Delhi kids of the 90s. So like all Delhi nostalgia growing up in a Punjabi household, right from TV shows, candies, food, how your grandparents behave with you, how your parents behave with you, all of that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
This is damn exciting. And now that we're talking about writing, I'm so excited to read the book. I've read like part of it. Just tell me all about it, because I'm so fascinated by the idea of writing a book. I never thought of it for the longest time. And, like being an author and having a book is always like a big thing. Oh, this guy has a book and now you finally have one. Would love to know everything about the process. What is it about? What are you talking about in the book? Because you have so many things to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, probably from acting to like, being like, again, like a very, very well-educated background, right? So just tell me everything about the book. What was the process like? Why did you start? When did you start? And how did it shape along?
Okay, so the book is called Daily Coffee and Startup Fundraising. It's essentially corporate finance for startups, helping a founder understand whether the idea is worth pursuing or not, how to figure out the scale of the idea, the financial feasibility of the idea. Should it best be done bootstrapped or through external capital or investor money? That's the first part, just the basics. It's called getting the house in order. Okay.
Interesting.
So just understanding the basics of running a business. The second part is on finance and fundraising. What all basics does a founder need to know about what is the value of your business? So how will you value your business so that when you go to an investor saying, I'm going to dilute this much equity for this much valuation, you don't seem like a fool and you've done your homework. So there's valuation, there's how to reach out to investors, what is the structure of data you need to give to an investor?
Right.
What kind of exit opportunities do you need to offer to an investor? So it's basically bringing together the best practices from the best founders raising capital and what an investor wants to see in your business, educating them on all of that. And the third part is more legal, where it says that when you have a term sheet, how to understand all of those clauses, how to negotiate on all of those clauses, and what is going to be the legal paperwork and the structure. A lot of founders, when they get a term sheet, they're like, oh, good, next week I'll have money in the bank, not realizing that it easily takes about 2-3 months after the term sheet to get everything in order, and what are the steps to be done. So all of that in one place. In terms of what motivated the book or how the process started is I was making content on startup finance, and that was a body of knowledge which was slowly growing. And I think right now we have close to about 530, 550 videos, something close to that.
Wow.
And Yash Raj, the publisher from Visor, reached out and he said, you're a knowledge creator. What if we were to make a book out of it? And it's like he took the words out of my mouth, because that was the next idea, that how can we structure all of this information in a fashion that a person can get educated in a proper structure.
Correct.
So I told him, let's do this as a book. I'm onboarded. Then was the time to build a process around it. How are we going to do it? I think the wonderful thing that Yash Raj did was he gave me a writer to transcribe everything that I would tell her. And say. And that writer is actually a wonderful girl. She's just completed her undergrad in, I think, the liberal arts.
Okay.
So no background in finance, no background in business. So Yash Raj and I decided, we looked at some 60-70 books on startups. which I had read in the past.
Yeah.
We extracted the table of contents of all of them to say that whatever is in these 60, 70 books, we have to include everything which is relevant for an Indian entrepreneur. So the first step was building that structure. Second step was building the process, where he gave me a writer who doesn't understand finance, which was great because when I had to explain it to her, I had to explain it that today, if a person from the 10th standard wants to build a startup, he should be able to understand everything which is being said in the book right from scratch, needing no background in finance, commerce, anything. And I think it was very fulfilling to see that she was understanding the concepts. So we scheduled 2-hour calls every alternate day for 4 months. And when I'd be walking and jogging, the same call structure. So I would tell them that, okay, today we'll talk about this topic. And I would give away everything in a structure that, okay, this is how this is to be done. They would record. Later, Ankita, who was the writer, was transcribing everything. Then Yashraj, being Yashraj, wants to add value to people's lives. So he would edit it and send me the, chapter saying this is what we've transcribed or what you said. And I would put in my inputs, we discuss it. In the next call, they would first say, we've understood what you explained in the last call, but now we have further questions on the same topic.
Interesting.
So, we would answer those questions. So coming from people who haven't studied finance, we knew that we were building something which will answer all questions of a founder. So the writing process was done in 4 months. I think after that, it took about 2-3 months to design the book, to figure out, okay, will it be matte, glossy, what will be the pricing, what will be the size, what will be the distribution model, all of that. So I think we followed a process in everything, which was very fulfilling to do. And now I hope it will, as long as it adds value in people, because while it's been written in a way that it's easy for anyone to understand, it's also been written with a lot of depth that I feel if an investor who's been in this industry for these many years reads it, I feel that there might be at least one thing that they'll feel, oh, this is great, or this been explained so well. I want to recommend this to all the startups we funded or all the founders in our network, that this is one book which will put everything in context for you. So I think that's the end objective that we wanted to achieve.
And one thing that I particularly liked about the book and the chapter that you sent me was the fact that the context was India. I don't know if that's throughout the book because I'm yet to read the entire book, because whenever I've read anything about the startup ecosystem, everything is in dollars, everything is in the US context, everything is, that startup in the US did this. But our startup ecosystem has grown a lot now, and I felt we needed something in this context. And I love the part that it was in our context. Desi context mein tha, still with like deepest of the knowledge that probably I've seen in blogs or free resources.
Correct. So I think what you'll see is that most of these 60, 70 books that we initially took out the table of contents from, I'd read all of them, which is why I could tell Yashraj that, pick these books, these are great. I opened my Goodreads and saw what are the books that I've read, which I've really recommended. And all of those books are written by authors and investors based out of Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv or, other places in the world where the VC ecosystem really was built over the years. So a lot of the things those books recommend in terms of, they'll say the tax implications and the deal structures, while the bare concepts are the same, but how you apply it in the context of the Indian law is where founders have to spend thousands and lakhs of rupees with chartered accountants and lawyers to get some very basic answers. And those were very basic questions that we would get on an everyday basis. So I think it was a way to productize it, that even if you were to spend just 10,000 rupees on getting some of these basic answers from professionals, this will give you 10x value because it's answering all of that in less than 10% of the cost.
Okay, so very, very objectively, let's summarize, who is this book for?
So this book is for ideally anyone who's between 25 to 35. I'd say that's the very, even though anyone like a 10th grader can read it, a 45-year-old founder or investor can also read it. But max value will be 25 to 35. These people have either just started working or have some work ex and now feel they want to get to building something of their own.
Yeah.
Most relevant for them, no finance background needed, and it will answer every question that you would go to a CA or a lawyer or an experienced startup founder or an investor.
Since now you're a creator, I am just very excited to ask this one question, which has been sort of in my mind for the longest of the times, because I feel we're in a game where valuation has become this massive thing. And although I may not be a big believer of it, since I run a bootstrap business and we get the shittiest of the valuations, I would love to understand, as a creator, how do you value a creator? Like, what's the valuation of a creator? Because we have seen hockey stick growth in creators, right? Like, first year they may be earning like 4 lakhs an annum. Suddenly next year that 4 lakhs is now 4 crores. So how do you now figure out what's the valuation of a creator?
Okay, so valuation fundamentally is three things. Okay. But most books and finance professors will tell you two. One is future cash flows, how much can you generate in money, and the second is the growth rate. Because with that you'll be able to project how fast they'll grow and what are going to be the future cash flows. The third and the most important thing that no one talks about but is the most important is the narrative. That where is the creator's story or audience going with this?
Right.
Okay. Now let's take an example of Mr. Variku, and I think we can safely take this because he's been very open about his finances, so we're not really giving away any confidential information. We all know, is one creator who probably makes the maximum money in the country at this point.
Yeah.
But his narrative would not just be what money he is creating or he is going to create in the next 4 years. I would imagine his narrative would be that I have influence, the greatest influence at this time over people between the ages of 18 to 22 in the country.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, any company which wants to enter India and cater to this target group can either run ads, make content, do whatever to cater to them.
Correct.
Or I can be their go-to market. They come to me, and because I have trust, I have distribution, I am not just an Amazon to market your product and make it be discovered. I'm an Amazon plus where I have 5-star reviews. I am showing up on top as fulfilled by Amazon, and that's where the value is. So if an Amazon is charging you a 30% to sell your products, maybe I can charge just a 20% and give you more value for that plus, or I can easily even command a 40% and still justify the cost to you because you are making massive money.
Right.
So I think, which is where the narrative on where a creator is going with the process is so much more important. And some creators may really monetize and do brand deals. What that in some cases may do with the audiences, it's reducing the trust aspect. Because if there is a brand which doesn't work for the consumers and they've bought it on your recommendation, that'll reduce the trust metric.
Correct.
But if you choose not to recommend any brand and not to monetize through brand deals in the initial years and build it, I feel even though there are no cash flows at this time, the future cash flows can be immense because of the trust metric that you've built.
Really interesting. And can we put a number? Like, can you, let's say Variku, if he does a top line of, let's say, 40 crores in a year, what could potentially be the multiple of his valuation?
Okay, so let's think about it. If he's doing 40 crores in top line, and imagine that his expenses are just 30%.
Even lesser, I think. In
Even
the
lesser.
creator business, like
So assuming
10-15%.
So 10%, okay?
Yeah.
That means he's getting an EBITDA of 36 crores and he's growing at a rate of 2x every year. So first year is 36, the second year is 72, the third year is 144, and so on and so forth. So if you were to just do a simple summation of 36 plus 72 plus 144 plus so on and so forth, that could be one way of putting a value. So he's probably at this time, I would say, easily upwards of 200 crores in valuation.
Wow.
Very, very conservatively, simplistically speaking, I think with the narrative, the valuation can easily be upwards of 600, 700 crores. Can easily be justified.
Massive.
Easily be justified.
I mean, so you're saying even the lower cap is close to $30 million, which is which is
100%.
really good. So 30 million to
100%.
like 50, 60 million for that matter.
100%.
Wow. So creators have potentially like a big gold mine that they're sitting on.
But see, it's important to also understand that, what is the barrier to entry
Yeah.
in being a creator. If you're doing something which all other creators are doing, or anyone can come in and create content on,
Right.
because you don't control the barrier to entry. Tomorrow, 100 other creators, and you actually don't have control over how many followers you'll have. If you were to read Attention Factory, which is the story of how they built ByteDance and TikTok, you'll actually learn that there are people sitting at the back end who click on a heat button, and suddenly overnight a person has 1 million followers, which 1,000 other people look at and start making content because they're like, this guy got 1 million and he's making so many crores, and even I want to do it. This is a trick by those platforms to get 1,000 other people incentivized to create content. So the number of followers you get is actually not a metric completely in your control.
Right.
Your system and process is in your control. So I would say, as a creator, it's important for you to understand what kind of content do I do, which can get me the followers, but has a high barrier to entry, because the value add I am giving, no other creator can easily come and provide, because to learn this insight, it'll take them 10x, 100x input to come out with this 1x output.
Yeah. And I think the creator that we're discussing, right? I mean, let's take Ankur's example. Ankur is not only doing content, like his income source, I feel it's just the way to attract the audience, like how we generate leads. I think content is just to generate those top level leads, and eventually he converts them to, like, probably would form a community later on, probably would sell a book to them, and not just selling different things, but also making sure that the community is not limited to one platform is something that every creator will eventually have to understand.
Correct.
There's a massive conversation going around community startups that help creators build a community, because eventually a successful creator will not be the one with the maximum amount of followers online, but will be the one which has the maximum amount of engaged followers, which may not be on the first platform on which they got the followers. That could potentially be on some other company's community platform, or even their own community platform, which I feel right now nobody has aced it. I don't know anybody who has actually aced a community, but I'm really looking forward to somebody like, killing it in that space, because I feel the moment they do that is in your control, because your community is in your control.
Let's take an example to understand this, okay, of a startup. Just look at what Cred is doing, okay?
Yeah.
The discussion around valuations aside, their objective has been make a community of the top 1% most credit-worthy people, and spend money just on doing that. Now, with paying of credit card bills, you're actually getting data on their credit worthiness. Plus, look at the frequency of use. It's monthly. Urban Company, at one point when they launched their services, which was plumbing services or electrical services, which you possibly need, say, once in 4 or 6 months. The reason they came into grooming and men's grooming is because men need to get their hair cut like every month. Look at me, I do it every single day. I mean, I built an in-house system to take care of it, but when you increase frequency of use, you're actually building habits, and you're building a more engaged community. So I think Cred is just building a community of engaged users, and maybe right now it's not monetizing it in a way in terms of revenue to justify its valuation.
Yeah.
But if the narrative to the investors in closed door meetings with Kunal Shah and another investor are correct, then the reason investors are putting in money is because they understand the narrative that he's telling them, which the rest of the country is not even aware of.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Actually, this brings me to, one of the last sections of the podcast, which I'm really interested in, which is, we do like a rapid fire. I'll say the name of the company, and you have to probably tell your immediate first thought, unfiltered, and this has to be like rapid fire. I'm very serious about it being a rapid fire, okay? So no cutting in the edit. This is like snip, snap, like right after the other.
Got it.
So I'm going to say the name of a company, and you're going to say like the first candid thought that comes to your mind. Let's start with Byju's.
Physics wala. Because Look at bootstrap versus, external capital.
Yeah.
Here, physics wala built a unicorn, first round of funding just 10% diluted in.
Yeah.
So I think I always give this example of Byju's versus physics wala that every founder feels only when I get capital right, I will be able to do it. Someone else in edtech, which raised the most amount of money in the past 2 years, could do it on the backing of content without external capital. So whenever someone says Byju's, we have to say physics wala just to tell people that there are several ways to do it, and don't just think of one superstar, look at another superstar and know the entire range.
And Byju's is what, sitting at a 2.5, like 2,500 crores of loss. This according to the recent report?
According to the recent report, which is probably
insane.
March 21. So March 22, we're all yet to see.
Oh man. And the expenses have only gone up because they've just sponsored the World Cup and so on and so forth. Okay,
Cred, community.
Zomato.
Biryani. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I was studying about the most ordered food items in India, and biryani tops the chart across Zomato as well as Swiggy. And after that comes dosa and pizza. Pizza, the numbers are probably not accounted in the right way because a lot of people still continue to order through Domino's to get the best deal.
Right.
So actually it's biryani and then pizza, but Zomato is biryani. They make massive money just selling biryani.
I didn't know that. That's today I learned. Okay, Paytm.
Disrupted. I think UPI, so many things happening. I feel they're getting disrupted very soon. But of course, they've built something massive. I mean, I'm no one to pass that judgment. I would have never been able to build such a company. So let me just put it out there.
Yeah, I feel like, when I really am a fanboy of Vijay Shekhar Sharma, and I feel like the current narrative after their IPO that, Paytm ne paise duba diye retail investors ke and whatnot, I will not go to that debate because again, I'm not qualified enough to talk about that. But I think as a fanboy of the Indian startup ecosystem, I think he is the person who truly disrupted and introduced a behavioral change in us.
100%. And I feel, the reason it's been disrupted is not because of Paytm or their lack of execution or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that it's simply how UPI just disrupted your Visas, MasterCards. It removed merchant discount rate. It removed every way for people to make money off of transactions in terms of percentages.
Correct.
So it's just unfortunate that Paytm is part of it, but they're really trying to monetize through selling other several services and financial products. But UPI is just disrupted the
I really hope they
entire
succeed because I feel like, I don't know, I think you feel a connect with a certain company. For me, that's always been Paytm.
100%.
Zepto.
Let's just say I
think that expression
love
is the answer.
going down to the market and just socializing with the sabzi wala, saying 10 nahi yaar 8 mein kar de. So I think that joy I'm not getting in Zepto. So purely me as a consumer is not finding joy in ordering it on Zepto than I do in just doing it socially. So that's just me.
I had a very interesting conversation, and I will loop you in offline as well, with this guy called Ganesh. He runs this channel called Think School. And Ganesh and I, when Ganesh was making the case study on Zepto, we figured out that Zepto can only be potentially profitable if the order value is really, really high. In that case,
Correct.
high is
which is for everyone. I think it's order value is where you make money, because your delivery cost in a lot of things is going to be
pretty significant,
fixed in terms of significant, and then there's an essence of variability in terms of distance to be traveled and stuff, and you can only make that money when you have a high order value.
There's high attrition rate, by the way, in delivery boys leaving and then them going to, let's say, an Instamart or a Blinkit. The point, however, is we just discussed amongst our friend circles that when do you use Zepto in the first place, and it was more often than not for unplanned purchases. Oh, you're having alcohol, I don't have the ice at home. Okay, you ordered lunch, but I forgot to have Coke, so I ordered Coke through Zepto, which creates a massive problem for them. And I would love for them to succeed, because I feel that it's not easy to build the kind of company that they build.
Such young kids,
fast.
It is inspiring. I mean, what was I doing at their age? I was probably just beating myself about being Dram sock, and being oh shit, I'm not studying for CA.
So I think massive inspiration. And in fact, Adit came on the show. Like we had an episode, and I think he's very, very smart. But at the same time, I would love for them to figure this out and see. Like I remember Blinkit just launched their printing service.
Oh yes,
yeah.
photocopy and
Correct.
Xerox service or something. That's
For like a lot of people, it's a very small thing, but like for people like me, it's massive. For that service, I don't like going out.
Correct.
But for like something like purchasing groceries, I love going. So for me, the Zepto usage went up, and now it's down because I'm back to my like previous behavior of, because the grocery shop in my case is just in the basement, so it takes me like 40 seconds to reach.
Correct.
Right, and this is the case especially in tier 2 tier 3 towns. It's right outside people's house. हर मोहल्ले में एक grocery shop तो होता ही है जिसके पास mostly your daily needs का सामान is there.
I'll tell you something. You know, it's like, you know, when they say don't judge a person basis just one aspect of their life that you know. For example, you know them at work and you'd be like terrible person, terrible boss, terrible colleague, whatever. You know them as a significant other and you'd just be like, I can't deal with this person. Correct. But when you look at people's lives in totality and when you get a bird's eye view on all the fires they're fighting and making it work, that's when you really see value in them. And I feel the same thing is about startups. What comes with fame is that whatever is the narrative which is currently playing in the media, everyone makes a very quick judgment around it. But if you were to look at it, how many people at that age have built a unicorn and scaled something to this level? It's just
hard.
So inspiring, so inspiring.
I think we can only, as entrepreneurs, I think, as I said, right, massive respect for them building
Absolutely.
this. As a consumer, of course, I will have a very different viewpoint. But as an entrepreneur, every day you look at them and be like, this is how you scale.
Correct.
And they have not scaled randomly. It's very, like, if they've made something new work in a market acquired by giants like Blinkit. And,
Absolutely.
And they made, like, Grofers change their name for God's sake. I mean, that's hard.
Correct.
These are all, like, founders who have gone through, like, years of entrepreneurship. Okay, last. And this is, I feel this is very relevant to you. One of my personal favorite companies in fintech, Razorpay.
Need to solve for how to get money from outside India. I think there's a problem a lot of SaaS companies probably face, that, you know, you would still need a Stripe or something. You might have to, you'd consider opening a Singapore company where you can get funds and open that entity.
Yeah.
I feel that's an element which, and I'm 100% certain they're working on this.
Yeah, I think for me, Razorpay, I'm just a massive fan of what they've done for us. I know their products are not perfect. At least right now, I see a lot of complaints on Twitter, people complaining about their products. But I still think a lot of belief in them.
I'll tell you what, Razorpay is selling shovels in a gold rush. You know, Shopify came in, and now we have so many D2C brands because Shopify built that infrastructure.
Pipeline. Yeah.
You know, Razorpay has built that infrastructure that people can expect, you know, and accept payments online through UPI, through card, through all of these modes, which is, I mean, it's crazy because there's more money and value in building an enabler than in just being one of the other D2C brands or building a brand or so.
We had this discussion internally at Owl that, and because our business really took a massive hit after the May startup fall, because we always preferred working with startups. We said no to a lot of traditional companies that no, we won't be able to work with you because we vibe a lot more with startups. And we realized that a big part of our rise was not because we were the best, but the fact that the industry was also growing. So, I mean, because we used to give a lot of credit to ourselves, we have done a lot of hard work, but then it was very humbling for us that it was because as a service company, if a company is growing, you will also grow with them. So, I completely agree with you. I think if you enable somebody who's already growing at a massive pace, you also make a lot of money. There's a lot of, you know, opportunity to be grabbed. But this was such an interesting episode. I learned a lot from this. Thank you for taking out the time to do this. Sorry, I think we'll find a fix for that. But thank you so much for doing this, Sarthak. This was truly an honor. I know how valuable your time is, and for you to give it to this podcast means a lot.
Thank you
So much for doing it. And for people who are watching this, go buy the book. We'll put the link of the book in the description. It's not sponsored, not at all. I just love Sarthak and what he's doing. You must check out the book. And yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be here.